Ricky Jay is an amazing magician. I'd seen him, first of all, in McCabe's guitar store in Los Angeles in 1971. Even then, he was learning to throw cards across the room. He could throw a card into a melon, he could throw a card into a wall. So when I was asked to do a Bond film, I thought, wouldn't it be great to have Ricky Jay, the world's greatest magician, become a new Bond villain? Unfortunately, this was one of the few elements that didn't make it into the finished film. We shot it, but we couldn't fit it in. So here we have an early scene of Ricky practicing his cards.
Mr. Gupta, phase 1 is complete. It went exactly as you predicted.
What a surprise. Of course it did. Hang on, I'll put you up on the big screen. You can tell Carver about it yourself.
Begin phase 2.
The next scene is that classic scene that has to be in every Bond film, where Bond gets the assignment from M. We decided to take it out of the office, and instead it's played in a car racing through London. And her car, of course, is a very sedate Daimler. So we had it go through the city of London at great speed, and she's telling him what has to be done, and he's telling us what he knows about the characters. We thought to make it slightly more humorous, we would have them sipping cocktails as they drove, and it was that element that in the end we decided to remove. So in the final film, it's played largely in close-up, but in this version you'll see all the dialogue and the somewhat wider shots, and also a line that Pierce added at the end, an ad-lib line that was terrific.
How much do you know about Elliot Carver, 007?
Worldwide media baron. Owns newspapers, radio, satellite TV, movies, books, theme parks. Able to topple governments in a single broadcast, if you believe everything you read in the press.
I didn't want to discuss it in front of the minister, but that mysterious signal came from one of Carver's satellites. The PM would have my head if he knew we were investigating him.
Elliot Carver, born Hong Kong, officially an orphan. Unofficially, the illegitimate son of a German woman who died in childbirth, and Lord Roverman, the Hong Kong and London press tycoon. A Chinese family took the boy for a one-time fee of £50. 30 years later, Carver built up a chain of rival newspapers that drove Roverman into bankruptcy and suicide.
Nothing like family values. There is one strange thing. Carver owns that newspaper tomorrow. When I called our contact in Saigon, he said the Vietnamese only found our sailors 3 hours ago.
How'd they get the paper out so fast?
Somebody at Tomorrow found out before the Vietnamese government did.
I'm sending you to Hamburg, 007. We've arranged for you to be invited to a party tonight at Carver's Media Center.
It's the main uplink of his satellite network, where the signal would have been sent from. He's celebrating the launch of a new satellite, because now he has the ability to reach every human being on the Earth.
Except the Chinese, who've refused broadcast rights.
James, your ticket, cover story, and rental car reservation. Sign here, please.
I believe you once had a relationship with Carver's wife, Paris.
That was a long time ago, Em. Before she was married. I didn't realize it was public knowledge.
Queen and country, James.
Your job is to find out whether Carver or someone in his organization sent that ship off course and why. Use your relationship with Mrs. Carver, if necessary.
Yes, well, I'm sure she won't remember me.
Remind her. Then pump her for information.
You'll just have to decide how much pumping is needed, James.
If only that were true of you and I, Moneypenny. Smooth ride, Em.
I think the next scene is the only piece of Desmond Llewellyn that we cut out of the film. And we didn't cut it out because of him. He was so wonderful. But the scene that you're about to see was just a hair too long, and nobody wanted to lose it. It's a cheap joke, but it's a funny one. But nonetheless, we had this extra little piece that we took out, and here it is.
Right, now pay attention, 007. Your new car.
Jaguar?
Wrong assignment. Let's try again, shall we? Your new BMW 750.
This is one of those scenes where the scene is in the film, but there's a lot of dialogue that we had to take out. An entire story, in fact, has been enormously abbreviated in the finished film. It was a rather good story, and Jonathan actually does it very well, but the scene was playing a little long, and it was one of those sacrifices you make. The scene got written, in fact, because at the time mad cow disease was going through England, and it was a big scandal and a terrible catastrophic loss for a lot of people. So it was very much in the papers, in the headlines. Out of that came a very good story, a very funny and character-appropriate story, which in the end, like other things, fell on the cutting room floor, but I'm glad it's back now.
Anyway, there's absolutely no truth in this malicious rumor that I started running the mad cow disease story simply because Sir Angus Black, the great British beef baron, lost £10,000 in a game of poker to me and refused to pay up. Moreover, there's even less truth in the rumor that I took 100 million francs from the French to keep the stories running for another year. Although I can't deny, and Tamara here can tell you, I now own 26 new television stations in France. And I have in my possession a cheque from Sir Angus for £10,000. Suitably framed, of course. Although he might deny receiving a short note from me saying, never screw with a man who buys ink by the barrel.
Excuse me, Mr. Carver.
Yes.
This is the new banker, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
The next scene is another scene where we've just removed some dialogue, and in fact, not very much dialogue. So you're going to see a couple of extra lines. Just removing these lines changed the intent of this scene, and it does it in a very interesting way.
Glorious evening, wasn't it?
Come on, Elliot. Ignore those people. Sometimes these things happen.
Not to me. When I was 16, I went to work for a newspaper in Hong Kong. It was a rag, but the editor taught me one important lesson. The key to a great story is not who, or what, or when, but why. Your friend, Mr. Bond, made a mess tonight. I want to know why.
I told you I barely know him.
Barely. Maybe you should get to know him better.
The next thing you'll see is the end of a scene. The scene is in the film, of course, it's the car chase, and there was a tag on the end of it. And this is one of those cases where you debate endlessly when the film is finished. Do you keep the extra joke? Does it go dead with that? Does it make the scene? Does it take away from the scene? I always loved it, and yet at the end I also thought it should go, but I'm very glad it's back here.
Left the keys in the car.